Welcome to the October 4th, 2023 Conservation Commission meeting. Open session meetings are public meetings and they are subject to being recorded. They are being recorded. Your voice and image will also be recorded and live on YouTube forever. All right. Minutes. I read the minutes. There was one, so you mentioned about 100 River Road.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Stevens Family. I think it should be Stevens Family Foundation.
Okay,
Other than that, good job.
all right.
I thought it was a really good job.
Yep,
Yep.
especially because you didn't have to do it.
That's especially, yes.
All right. Any further discussion? I have a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
You second it?
Okay, I'll second it.
Give it to Kyle.
All right.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. No treasurer's report. I know that. The one bill that came, I don't want to bring that, we're not addressing that at this meeting.
All right.
Is there anything else?
All right. No other bills or
Okay.
forms. Some mail. We did get some mail. So, what is it? So, what is it? 66 Lancaster Road, Chris Hansen, that
Yeah,
NOI.
yeah.
They're setting up their erosion controls
Right.
within the next week or so. So they want somebody to come check them at some point. So I will keep you guys posted on when they do finally install the erosion controls, and then we'll set up a site visit.
Did that
Awesome.
sell?
No.
So he's doing it?
Yep.
Okay.
Or
Something
He's
like
starting.
that.
Putting, putting the erosion controls
Putting the
before
road
the
in.
ground freezes anyway.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Or 61 Lancaster. There we go.
Yep.
And then what else? We did receive just an inquiry about 96 Ball Hill Road.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're looking to work on the lawn there. So they're having some
Right,
water
show
issues.
Walter the picture. I read the email. So,
All right.
What is it?
So this is Ball Hill Road.
Yep.
So 96 Ball Hill Road here. I guess they're having some water issues with their lawn. And they were wondering if they could do something to address the water issues. The closest wetland is like 295 feet.
right, I looked
according to
on
the
Mass,
Mapper.
on Mass GIS and it's not showing any
Where's
wetlands there.
Maplewood down here?
Yes.
The farm?
South north is
96.
Yeah,
that way.
this
Maple
Yep.
is that way.
Yeah.
That's, I'll look at it after.
So they want to
Right, let me see that
drain
one.
something?
Here?
Yeah, so they're having issues
Yeah.
with their lawn.
Just
it's
right
wet
in the
and they
back.
can't use their lawn kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Because it's all muddy.
Yep.
You guys don't know anything about that.
Isn't everyone's lawn muddy this year?
Yeah.
Well,
Sore subject for so many people.
Yeah.
right?
Where am I looking at?
Right, so Maplewood is that way.
Yeah, but who's he? He's he?
This,
So that's 96. That's where they want to do the work, the little square.
right, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, but what's this?
Right. Where's 96? Where's 96?
Oh, right here.
96 is here, and this is 100. So 100 is the one that has the
Has
wetlands
the
behind
wetlands
it.
close to it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but they're not gonna reach.
Yeah,
Right.
it's 295 feet
Right.
from the edge of it. So
Yep,
I was just
that's-
gonna say they're fine to.
They can't put it into the driveway, they can't put it into the road.
Okay.
Right.
That's it.
Can you have the words too, right, from the email?
Yeah.
That was built after I got off the Board of Health, or it never would have.
Dear Kyle. Oh, different Kyle.
Yeah, different, really, there's two.
I was like, I don't remember emailing you.
Right, so, but this is, so they want to lay down 8 to 12 inches of hay, and then 2 to 3 inches of loam, and then seed the lawn.
Whose idea was that?
That doesn't. make
Landscape, well,
sense.
that's, I wasn't super excited about their solution.
Sounds weird.
Mm.
Yeah, but how much would that fall under earthworks? In a permit.
Right,
It's all
good.
within
Yeah,
100 feet of the wetlands.
No, but it's not really,
295.
it's, right, it's 295 from the because, so it's right
Oh,
here,
that's the one,
Yeah.
okay. Huh.
Right.
Okay.
right.
It'd probably be an earthworks permit and then common practice. vote with
And it's
building
100
department.
yards of soil? 100 yards.
Cubic yards, I think. Cubic?
Cubic yards.
Cubic?
Cubic?
Oh,
Earthworks. All right, so, yeah. It's just weird.
Does it
Yeah.
come
But-
under our jurisdiction
Yeah,
or not?
no, it doesn't.
No.
They're just asking for, yeah, right, exactly.
yeah, tell them to check with the other.
Yeah, just, you know,
Yeah,
it
check with
asks,
earthworks
just
and-
make sure they're not bringing in more than 100 cubic yards of soil and
Okay. Sounds good.
give our blessing.
Yeah.
All right. We have 3 more minutes. Anything else?
No, just a slight update on CSX, the train derailment on Allen Road. So they did file for an extension, their emergency certificate, which it was extended to November.
Oh, good.
And they also filed an NOI today.
I saw
And they
that,
will be
yeah.
on our agenda for our following meeting.
Okay. Awesome. Excellent. And Patrick's here, and Robin made it, yay! Okay, and then just an update officially, even though I told you before the meeting started. I inspected the erosion controls at 66 Gates Pond Road before I came here tonight. And looks good. They just did wattles because it's a pretty flat lot and they're not storing any soil on site.
66
Yeah.
Gates Pond Road.
Yep. So you know where Fosgate is?
Yeah, yep,
So Fosgate comes in.
yep.
The farm is
Yep,
here. There's a house here and the
Yep.
barn for that house is over
Right,
here. It's
right.
the house next to the
Oh,
barn.
okay, okay, yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah. Yeah, he was worried about getting blocked off there.
yeah. Yep, so as long as they're not storing soil there, I think just the wattles is fine. Like I said, it's flat. So, like that. All right. 1 more minute, Matt.
Since Robin's here, I do have filing fees for the NOIs that we just received.
Okay,
So
excellent.
Oh, sorry. One of those might not be that one.
Lots of mail for Robin. Awesome. And all right, come on up, Matt.
Sorry, I think that might be 61 Lancaster
Oh, okay.
report, yeah.
Oh, this is yours?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Because I have nothing to do with that.
Believe it or not, I'm not here for Highland Ridge yet.
I know.
Man of many hats.
That's why there's a big bald spot. That and kids. So normally when I send out abutter notifications, I was given a format by the office to send out. I usually insert the words if any abutters want copies of the PDFs ahead of time, just to email the boss at the house, which will be my wife, because she keeps track of that.
Good for you.
And then I haven't had any takers on this, but usually I just let the commission know for any future filings I might wind up having here. I always make a habit of doing that in case there are takers that just want to take a look.
Sure.
Sometimes people are curious, other times I get nothing.
Right.
So essentially what we have here, and I've got my notes on my handy dandy little tablet. We have a request for a septic upgrade over at 52 Dudley Road. I thought I'd put this so you guys can read it. This was designed by Evan Cullen. Innovative Septic Design has already been through the Board of Health. The only comment on DEP was on the structure where the new line is going, and he wrote the word proposed addition. That's actually an existing structure. It should have read proposed renovation, because what they're doing is they're renovating it into an in-law apartment.
Right.
They're adding an extra line going to the system, so the whole system had to be updated and approved by the Board of Health. Hence the reason why we're here. There will be a new line added to the existing tank from the house to redo the line going into the new system, but the tank from the house is going to remain in place. There will be a new tank coming out from the proposed renovated
here.
area right there. So essentially, the work involves the replacement of the leach field, which actually comes up 3 feet closer to the road, so it's 3 feet farther away from the wetland than the existing system is now.
And is that in the same location?
It's in a very similar location. This dotted outline right here is actually where the existing field is currently.
Okay.
So that will be basically abandoned and left in place. The dark solid line you see here is proposed erosion protection in the form of staked in wattles, and he has no silt fence on there, but if the commission wants silt fence,
Almost always.
yeah, it's
Yep.
not a problem. If you just want to write it into the order, I will, or I can have Evan just simply amend the plan.
Yep.
He's usually pretty Johnny on the spot with getting that done.
And it's a Presby system.
Yes.
I saw that when I read these plans. Yeah, I spent a lot of time going back and forth with Google Earth, Mass Mapper, and the plan, trying to figure it all out, because it's all kind of jumbled on the end of Dudley Road.
Yeah, it's like trying, when I first went to the property, it was like finding the house was like, whoa! It's like you get to the end, it's like, okay, there it is, it just kind of hits you.
Yeah, yeah.
So everything is greater than 50 feet from the edge of wet. The actual, some of the work, like just a small section of the piping, is actually out of the buffer zone. The total amount of square footage of work proposed was a little under 1,500. I believe I had an exact figure listed. 1,470 square feet total. So it's 1,000 square feet for the leach field. The tank and the force mains are 470 square feet total in the buffer zone. It's a very short-term job.
Right, because it's 3 and 4.
Yeah, proposed. The garage doesn't, they want a disconnected ADU.
Correct.
Do you already have approval for the ADU?
As far as I know, everything else has been approved. So, because I asked if everything was all set.
Right, so
with the
that needs to
system.
go to ZBA.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't want to approve a 4-bedroom tank, because then they can use it as leverage for the ADU without prior approval for the ADU, because it's only a 3-bedroom house, so you only need a 3-bedroom system. But if you let them put in a 4-bedroom system, you give them for a disconnected ADU.
But that's what they're asking for.
Yeah, but they don't have, that's a
I
zoning
see what
thing.
you're saying.
You
Yeah.
give them more leverage, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not sure what we mean by the term leverage.
Well, that was his word.
Yeah, that was my word.
Okay.
The proposed system is for something you don't have,
That's correct.
so.
That's correct. That's why the whole system had to be designed, because they're asking for a 4th bedroom.
Yeah, so I think I'd want to see some approvals for from zoning for a disconnected ADU prior to approving a 4-bedroom system that doesn't need to be there if they don't only have a 3-bedroom house. So it's like the cart before the horse, in my mind, my opinion.
But I mean, if they don't get approval, wouldn't that just render the whole need for the filing moot? Because the system wouldn't be able to be built.
Right, we can
I mean,
approve
we're-
it pending approval, ZBA approval. So if they don't get ZBA approval,
I'd rather
approval.
to make it,
Is that a proposed new building you're talking
the
about?
building
it's a garage,
exists.
Oh, it's a garage.
Right.
okay.
yeah,
So it's gonna be renovated into
an ADU.
living space, yeah.
Yeah, I would rather have zoning approval prior to the vote on a 4-bedroom unit. Is that possible? That way it falls on zoning to do their due diligence for the whole system and this ADU. Prior to us approving a system, it doesn't need to be built.
Where's the expansion area in that?
Right, so where is the reserve
The whole
system?
Back where the old one was probably.
No.
They'll have to dig it up next
The
time.
Board of Health didn't,
And
Ma-
ask him to specify a reserve unit on this plan.
Really?
Otherwise, it would have been
I
here.
have never seen them not ask for a
I'd have to
reserve.
talk to Evan about that one.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would request that this thing be approved contingent to the ZBA approving it. I mean, honestly, if they don't approve it, the system's moot,
Yeah, but you're gonna go to zoning and say, we already approved the 4-bedroom system.
pending their approval.
But it's not moving further into the buffer, is it?
No.
No,
So I'd say the rest of it probably isn't our jurisdiction. And we don't,
I think health department's gotta sign off on it.
Oh, yeah. that's
The
the thing. I mean,
Board
it
of
needs to
Health, I
be-
know the Board of Health has approved it.
Okay,
I talked to Paul. So it does have Board of Health approval. I mean, I'm fine making it pending ZBA.
I agree.
I'm not trying to be the Board of Health, but where's the expansion area for that? If
There
it's-
is no expansion
not marked.
Well,
area.
then they can't, we shouldn't approve it for, it isn't adequate right now. There should always be 100% expansion area. When I was on the Board of Health, that was our regulation. You put it in an area, and you have to have 100% expansion area, and it doesn't even have that now. So, they're gonna look to add to it? What are they gonna do, turn that garage
So
into
this
a
is
bedroom?
the
Yeah, pretty
existing
much.
system,
Yeah, that's what,
and this is the
yeah,
existing
yeah,
system. This is the proposed new system.
okay.
My guess is they will just label this as the reserve.
Why are they moving out of it? Is it failing? If it's failing?
No, because they need to make it bigger to accommodate the one bedroom
Another
that they're
bedroom.
adding.
Okay.
So what exactly
Well,
does ZBA?
If I may, Madam Chair.
How can they get two
ZBA
buildings on one lot?
approves
one's a
accessory
garage,
dwelling
right?
units.
Yeah.
Which
So
is
the
what
garage is allowed to
ADU
be
is.
separate.
Right, you keep saying.
but then the garage is, they wanna
And they
get
have
special
to
zoning
be-
approval to make it a,
Oh, I
At
see.
least my
ADU.
current, my understanding of what the
So you got
bylaw
two,
is right
yeah.
now. It has to
Exactly.
be a relative and it's only good for 5 years and needs to be
They have to
approved
renew
every 5 years, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So,
And
going
then-
to the commissioner's point, I understand where he's coming from, but I have to remind, the Board of Health's already approved this. So we have to assume that it meets all the requirements of Title V and groundwater protection and drinking water supply protection under the Wetland Protection Act.
Which is our part,
Right.
right.
So,
Yep.
if we were talking about the Board of Health, but the Board of Health's already seen this and given it its nod of approval.
Yep.
Now, ZBA would ask for a letter from the Board of Health.
That's correct.
Right.
Right, and a letter from us.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So,
And if they don't approve it, per your order of conditions, that it would be pending, then the whole thing would be moot.
correct.
So to address the commissioner's concerns here, once a ZBA application is put in, I'm assuming I can make that happen, but I'm assuming the commission will want to notify the ZBA that the order was contingent upon their approval.
Yeah, and we will certainly do that. They will also ask us.
I just,
Yep.
yeah, I just
Yep.
don't want to make it seem like we are trying to access them. You know, it's an excellent point.
Yep.
So I want to address that point. So I want to make sure that that's addressed. And I think, you know, putting it contingent with their approval, if we stress that,
Right.
You know, it kind of takes any leverage my client would get basically out of their sales, so.
Right. And I want to see the silt fence.
He'll have that done by tomorrow, as soon as I tell him.
Yeah, so if you'll just send us that digital copy, once that is included. Any other issues with this? Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
Where are the wetlands on there that's relative to us?
So
The
this is,
pond down here somewhere.
Okay.
yep, this is the 50-foot, this is the 100-foot. But the well radius is, because that's why I spent so much time. I'm like, why aren't they just moving it up? But it's because of the well radius of the wells.
So the closest the system comes to the wetland is 69 feet. It was 66, it's moving up 3 feet. So,
So there'll be 2 wells on the property.
Correct. Right, does this well exist?
I see.
The one for the garage?
You know, I don't know that answer. Let's see what he has it labeled as. Proposed. So he has box number 9 here. That area is out of the buffer zone. Box number 9 on his notes, it says proposed new well.
So theoretically, the well could go in a different place. And this could move up.
That I cannot answer. I'm assuming the well was placed there to offset to any other abutting systems,
Right,
because you've got other abutting properties.
yeah. And again, as we said, it's pretty tight in there.
He tried to move it as far away as he could out of the buffer zone, and basically everywhere he tested apparently came out to that site.
Right.
And there's currently not a driveway from garage to house, right?
No.
So that's why you wouldn't want that over there, because you're gonna pave from here to here.
Right.
I'm getting you over there.
Yeah.
Our Board of Health this week.
Want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve this plan based on pending approval from the zoning board
Of appeals.
of appeals.
And the revised detail.
And the revised erosion control detail. Yep.
And the plan is dated,
Well, the revision date will be, the plan is dated currently September 6, 2023, is the current revision date.
okay.
Look at all the friggin' clusters.
Yep. All right.
Right, that one.
Gives a motion.
Any, yep,
Oh,
the
She made
motion
a
is made.
motion. I will second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
By the skin of your teeth.
Skin of my teeth.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Wait a
And
minute,
you'll
aren't I next?
also, yeah.
So moved.
Well, I'm gonna go step out and see Mr. Clark for a moment.
All right, well,
Before we,
quickly, because
Yep.
we are gonna call you in.
yep. I'll just leave my tablet here.
What was it, 3-2?
3-2.
Oh,
Yeah, I just don't think it's our jurisdiction.
Kind of like a close
It's not
baseball game.
Yeah,
Impacting the wetlands further, I just don't think we can withhold.
right, I agree.
Right, but they usually go to the zoning board before they come to us.
yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be definitely be pending that, but I just,
Well, it just sets a bad precedent.
He
Also,
can't meet with
when did
them.
Board of Health
but it's
approve
not
it?
our precedent.
When
you
did
know?
Board of Health
Yeah, you gotta
approve
get the
it?
sign-offs before you come in.
Probably at their last meeting.
Oh.
Yeah.
He
Because I
also,
thought they were waiting for us
He's
to
gonna go
review
there and
it
say, yeah,
before
everyone
they.
says it's cool.
he also can't meet with the zoning board till November.
Excellent. It's not our,
Yeah,
why,
they'll
they
figure it
already
out.
met this month?
They're
I
meeting
expressed
next
my
week, but they
concerns.
have a time, there
Right,
has to be
yeah.
a certain amount of time before.
Yeah.
Right, the agenda's all set, so.
Did y'all miss me? Yes. Lying is a sin.
All right, guys. Pat, do you want to come up and sit at the big table?
No more pouring, right, Patrick? Telling you, the stuff writes itself.
No John tonight?
No, he has a conflict, so, you know, I'll try to answer to the best of my ability, not being an engineer, but having been involved in some of the conversations. Let me get my briefcase over here. If we could get started off quickly, going through my notes, a couple of things the commission had asked for. From me. One was working on doing contingency planning for being able to find a time to get a piece of equipment in, where we're gonna get the piece of equipment in, and then pulling the sediments out. We're still
Of the
working
pond- of
on
the
that.
detention
Of the
pond.
detention pond. It just doesn't stop raining. We're in for another treat this weekend.
I heard.
And the
I saw
10-day.
news tonight. I
It
was
loo-
like,
It looks like from the 10-day, it's gonna be a weekend event for the next couple of weeks. Yay. So we are still working on that. We're just trying to figure out when it gets cold enough. We're looking at when it gets cold enough. I've been talking to Mr. Clark, walked the site with him, talked to the developer, Mr. Benincasa, about it. If we actually have snow this winter and it freezes, and
Yeah.
we're
Who
all
knows?
hearing the dueling forecasts because of the El Nino. Some of the weather experts are saying, oh, it's going to be a cold, snowy winter up here. Others are saying it's going to be a warm, wet winter up here. They just don't know.
Nope.
So we are working on that still. The other thing that you asked to work on was to come up with a contingency plan, a narrative, to account for if we have a warm, wet winter, spring thaw, or snow followed by melt, how we're gonna handle it. So I wrote up this plan and, oops, sorry guys. Usually not this clumsy in public anyway. Patrick? So, I mean, essentially, I wrote up a narrative contingency plan, and it, essentially, I guess the two words I could use to summarize this is elbow grease, put it in very oversimplified terms. So, essentially, any type of work over the winter would involve what we normally would do. We would have to do continued assessment of the site like we've been doing now, continue to look at the site, see how it's being affected, seeing what's growing in, seeing what wasn't growing in, seeing the areas that are thin. Obviously, we're not going to have anything growing until next spring, but we have to identify any potential sources of erosion associated with any snow and ice melt in areas that develop. During the winter melts and spring, including things like soil erosion, sediment runoff, water overflow, drainage, any damage to the site from weather events. If you have a nor'easter and then, which Massachusetts is famous for in the late winter, you have a nor'easter and 2 days later, 2 feet of snow's gone because then it winds up being like 70 degrees out. So we have to be prepared for things like that. That would wind up being a coordinated effort between Mr. Clark and myself, Mr. Clark being the on-site contractor, myself being the stormwater inspector, for overseeing erosion control measures during the spring thaw or any snow melts. That would also involve coordination with Mr. Garner to make sure that he's informed as to what's going on as well. Mr. Garner's out on site regularly. As he indicated in his last report from last weekend, we partially walked the site together until I had to go into the group meeting with the residents of the community. So we would have to monitor the site regularly to make sure we continue to understand any erosion vulnerabilities that either are still existing or may develop, because you just never know. The current procedures for mobilizing crew members to implement any items need to be maintained or any modifications that we need to make will be made and then added to the implementation. Erosion control measures, so we're looking at continued maintenance on the erosion control blankets. We're looking to install and maintain any other erosion, if there are any other high-risk erosion areas that we deem that are developing and that need extra blankets, we would then talk to Mr. Garner about it, show him on site, and then, basically add the blankets, replace blankets that are no longer functional. We've had instances where we've had some blankets, they start to turn over, we pin them back, they seem to be in good shape. If we find the blankets need to be replaced, we would replace them. Stormwater management, we'd have to continue to monitor, the catch basins, the swales that are on site, sediment in the detention pond, to make sure that, everything is still basically status quo or running cleanly. Around those, if we had to install, like if we had to reinstall the, the silt sacks, or if we had to add erosion protection around any other areas, that's not definitely, it's not off the table. It is actually should be part of any standard procedure, but I'm putting it down as part of the formal steps. So vegetation, when spring comes, we're just going to have to continue to vegetate. I know when I was on site with Patrick on Saturday, Mr. Garner and I both noted that this is probably as far as getting things to grow and is going to be going on through the end of the spring at least. So, before I think all parties would be satisfied. So, to address a comment that was made by one of the residents, when spring comes back, we'll have a schedule with regular watering. If we have a dry spring, if we have a normal spring, we will still schedule watering. It just would be on a reduced capacity, obviously. But we're going to have to make sure that the areas that we add seed to or areas that we reseed will be regularly watered. I noted that comment down. I heard it, I noted it down in my head, and I wanted to make sure that I included that in this. So we would continue with the current monitoring schedule for erosion control measures, including daily inspections during the thaw period. We would document any observations, obviously for reporting purposes. Usually what I do is I review stuff with Mr. Garner before I write any type of progress report like I did before the last meeting. What's been seeming to happen, which actually is kind of a cool thing, is I go on the site, then Mr. Garner goes on the site, and he's able to mobilize his report faster than I am. And usually I just wind up typing a response saying what he said. Because we're pretty much in sync as far as what we're seeing out there from the very beginning.
I'll slow my reports down. I'll slow my reports
There you
down.
go. Well, I made sure to get something
Shift
in.
the burden to you.
Yeah, that's fine. But I made sure to get something in really comprehensive. That last time you couldn't make it on the site, you told me you couldn't. I wanted to make sure that we got
that
something
worked.
in.
That worked.
So training and education, with crews going in and out of there, any new personnel that start or any personnel that switched over, existing personnel that I think need the training are going to be trained. New personnel would automatically be trained. They will be told what a SWIP is, what erosion protection is for, and what to look for.
And how to install it?
And how to install it. I think on any site that's important, but I think memorializing it in this document to make sure that, because we have this document to make sure that we do this. If we do have any new staff come in or staff that may need, how do they call that, retraining? That happens once in a while. You have to bring them back to base one and remind them again. Document and record keeping, we've just got to keep compiling all the data. I have been submitting stuff like this to the commission. We just need to keep doing this. Working alongside with Mr. Garner. That's basically it. A lot of this is pretty much common sense. It's just sometimes you need to write the common sense down in a common sense plan. I also try to, certain comments I picked up from the residents, I try to add to the elements of this report. because I found them to be valid points, especially the part with making sure that the areas that we plant moving forward are regularly watered. And, I mean, we've been lucky in the respect that we've had the volume of rain that we had, and then in some respects, we've been unlucky because, as I had estimated, it kind of backfired on the jute matting a little bit because the jute matting holds the water back as well as the silt.
Right.
So probably, inactivated some of the seeds, maybe had some rotting going on, which is why I'm recommending going back and doing seeding by hand.
Awesome. All right. I have a whole bunch of things to say about this.
You go first.
Okay. So first, nice work, but how do we make sure it happens?
That's my responsibility.
And what if you stop getting paid?
That comes with any developer or any staff that they hire. There's a possibility that they stop getting paid. However, this particular client has never had an issue paying me for anything.
And you've worked with him on more than this project?
I'm working on him with several projects at once. I've got 1, 2, now 3, 4 subdivisions in total that I'm doing regular stormwater inspections on with this particular developer.
You have a contract?
Do you have a contract with him?
I don't have a formal contract, no. I am
Okay.
per diem person.
Right.
But with that question, as far as the details of the terms of my work with Mr. Venenkazer and Company, I'm not going to go into any further detail. Those are private details. and
Sure,
I'd rather
yeah,
leave them
no,
private.
and my only point is that, I need to make sure that there's follow-through. You know,
Granted.
we've got months to go, and, I'm not entirely sure how we get.
Yeah, that was my reaction to this. This is nicely prepared.
Sure.
It's the execution that counts, and they've got to do what they say, and they've got to be there,
Right.
and it's got to really happen.
Right, and we've got a little bit of a history of things falling off the radar on this project. And I just need, I don't know how we make sure, how we can make sure that all this happens.
Is Alex still in the picture? Could we talk about setting aside a reserve to cover in case,
Be more of like a contract without financial details of being on retainer or showing up so many times a week or month or whatever.
Or like an escrow kind of
Something
thing.
like that,
exactly.
yeah.
So regardless of who it is, if he fires all of you, just for the sake of argument, that there's money set aside in a fund that we could hire somebody to do the work.
To carry this forward.
I think you'd have to amend the order of conditions, which means you'd have to hold a public meeting to discuss it.
Right,
It's difficult to
Which
do
we
it
could do.
in the middle of a project.
sure.
With all due respect, an amendment to the order of conditions has to come from the applicant, not the commission. The commission can maybe do an enforcement action and say, what we want you to do is do an escrow account as an enforcement action. But doing an actual amendment to an order of conditions has to come from the actual person that holds the order or entity
Right.
under the Law Protection Act.
So let's do an enforcement action then.
I think we would need a reason to.
Well, yeah. And
Right.
you have an existing
Right, we
EO out
have
there
an,
now.
exactly.
We can make an amendment
amend
to
it.
our
We can
enforcement
amend, right,
action.
we
You
can
can amend it at will.
amend
On that
the,
end.
the existing enforcement order.
Yep.
Right,
I say that because it also gives you and my client more flexibility to interact on the terms of the enforcement order than the order of conditions.
sure,
So it actually has an advantage to my client as well.
right.
Is it possible for residents to get a copy of the report? We haven't seen anything.
Yeah, right? Do you have
I'll
a-
email it to Mr. Pisha, who's been the point person. And yeah, absolutely. Second I submit something to the Concom, it's a public document, so
Yep.
I don't have, I mean, if I was asked, I would have done it beforehand anyway, but I never have a problem sharing documents.
Right.
I have a question. Okay. When the development is completely finished and all the units are sold and occupied, will Mr. Benincasa still be the responsible person, or will it be the
Homeowners.
condo association?
That depends on my experience, and I can't say for this specific situation, because you'd have to talk to Mr. Parra and Mr. Benincasa about that. They're the ones that control that negotiation ability. But what I've seen in other instances is that the HOA that would inherit this from the developer, in other words, the developer is essentially kind of the HOA now, they wouldn't take on or sign it unless there was some type of warranties. I've seen HOA transfers held up until town boards have said, yeah, everything's great, and you guys can go now.
Okay. Yeah, because we don't want them to get stuck with this problem.
Right.
That was your basic
That's-
Point.
yes.
point? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you folks aren't aware, but there was a meeting last night, Board of Directors meeting for the association last evening, and Mr. Benincasa was there, surprisingly. But ultimately, he's saying spring is when he thinks he's going to be turning over this association, because of the fact that there's only 3 units left to sell. So that puts us in a very difficult situation depending on the winter and what happens come spring.
Right. And if I understand what you're saying correctly, is they need to accept the HOA.
That was always my understanding.
And you can not accept the HOA if there are still issues. True?
So we would have to sign a certificate of compliance.
My guess is that's true.
With that
So
order, yeah, because we can leave the,
we would, once the site is complete to the work approved, we would issue a certificate of compliance. And we wouldn't issue that if there were still ongoing issues.
Well, in speaking with my client tonight, Mr. Benincasa did stress that he's ready to do whatever it takes to fix the issues surrounding the neighborhood, including the erosion issues that we've had. I mean, we've put a lot of time and elbow greasing to getting this shaped up. He's just reiterating that he's committed to getting this done. Speaking to Mr. Grenier tonight, based on his site visit to the site, he's finding essentially that the issues between all the units are similar, but there are like minute differences that change the situation with the way the grading is done. So they're looking at alternative solutions for addressing each individual issue relative to either micrograding, maybe adding additional retaining walls, maybe just tearing the whole thing up and starting from scratch. I mean, nothing is off the table at that point. And I discussed this with both him and Mr. Benincasa, I want to say about 4 o'clock this afternoon. We were speaking about this. So nothing, according to my client, is, he'll do whatever it takes to make sure that this thing happens, is what his words were to me.
Okay. And Mr. Grenier was going to look at extending the swale. Do you know when he is going to have any kind of formal plan?
I can try to get you a firm timeline on a formal plan. Right now, in speaking with him, the issue is, again, like I had stated earlier, like when we walk Campbell Street, it's like every single unit has an issue that's similar. Some of them are more pronounced than others, some of them are less pronounced than others. He's trying to find a way to approach it where each individual unit can have tailored, smaller solutions tying into this extended swale to be able to take care of them in a manner that's most appropriate.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all is going to work here.
Sure.
Unless, of course, you strip the entire site out and put the entire site back together. And that would be a monumental task.
Sure.
With all of the houses sitting there.
Yeah.
And propane tanks in the ground between each unit.
Well, let's hope he can come up with a different plan.
It's funny, that's what he said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does the commission consider that whole discussion of individual units a plan as something you're waiting on? Is that
Yes.
something that's owed
Yep,
to
yep,
you?
yep, yep. So AJ, who is not here this evening because he's on an airplane to go on a month-long vacation in Norway. I'm so jealous, other than the cold part. But,
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, he had mentioned that there's a retaining wall that doesn't appear to have any weep holes, and that there's, I should have pulled his email up. Can you see if you can pull his email up
We looked at
real
that.
quick?
What's the height of that retaining
That
wall?
retaining wall is
What's
right
that?
behind
What's the
our
height of it?
home,
Okay,
and
That
there is
is
constant
roughly 4 feet.
water. So we're trying to figure out, is there a natural spring in that area? But there's water constantly in the street, even when there's bright sunshine.
right.
Who was that just spoke?
I'm sorry, your name again?
Linda White, 16 Spofford.
I knew it was Linda. And AJ mentioned that the hydraulic pressure of the water appears to be causing it to bubble up at the street?
Yes.
Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and, you know, as long as you guys are aware of this and it's on the list of things that,
Myself, Mr. Clark, and Mr. Grenier actually walked that area over the weekend.
okay, and you saw,
We saw water coming up out of the road.
okay,
So Mr. Grenier is examining modifications to that area, maybe to the back of the wall and the road, or a combination of two things that would address that issue.
okay, excellent. I just wanted to
Actually,
make-
that was actually a good day to go because we had a lot of rain the night before.
Right.
So it was actually a good day to go.
Good.
So what is he talking about modifying it with? How's he talking about modifying it? Separate?
I mean, I'm not an engineer. I just know he spoke about doing things like maybe, pulling up on one side, maybe pulling up the fence, digging behind it, putting in drainage behind it, maybe adding in holes, maybe
Okay,
adding in
like
an
some
outlet.
drain that would capture the water before it got to the road?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
John?
My question from that, you talked about the builder's willing to look at each property individual.
And he is looking at each property individually,
Does that
actually.
include the properties on Wheeler Hill as well?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me,
Oh,
Eric.
yep.
I just want to note that the landscaping company came in yesterday and started to finish. They dug that feature, I'll call it, in that swale from halfway up Campbell back to the drainage ditch. Just an observation that they didn't wait to get a total plan.
Right.
They did that.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yep.
I would remind the commission that the standing order we received from the commission at the last meeting was, even though we don't have the plan finalized yet, get it started and get something in there and see if it'll help,
Yep.
which is why that's happening now.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yes, I actually was gonna,
So it's like a
right.
half plan. Okay. So then I'd want to know about that wall then. I want to know from base of footing to top of that wall, the height,
Okay.
with pictures. Please,
Yep.
because that might explain some things.
Right, and even if it's not complete, I would like to see something at our next meeting from John. Even if it's a progress plan.
okay.
Do we want to bring Alex in too and talk about some sort of escrow? I know, we just got rid of him.
I'm not sure how that would
My
help.
suggestion to the chair, I
Yeah.
would probably talk to your town accountant and town council about the commission's options regarding that before you approach Mr. Parrott, if you're going to approach
Right.
my client's legal counsel.
Yeah. Let's have our ducks a little more in a row
Usually,
about that.
I mean, as the commission is aware, I was an administrator, actually a conservation director for like 35 years.
What
And
town?
Leominster, Lunenburg, Tingsboro, part-time in Sterling, Westminster. I still do contract review work for Dudley. I'm still working part-time hours as a retiree in Westminster and Winchendon.
Way out west.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been around the block on this, and I've always found that if you're going to ask this of, like, somebody like my client, it's always best to go to your accountant and your town council to figure out how you would set up an account, whether or not there are legalities involved in setting up the account. Town council may want to actually approach my client's counsel. You know,
Yep.
those are things you probably might want to look at.
All
I
right.
don't usually get legal advice from that side of the table.
I know, right?
Interesting.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, you know, I mean, Mr. Parra has been willing to come here and work with you guys, and Mr. Clark is, actually, I gotta give him a compliment, he's worked his butt off to get this stuff done. We're all willing to work together on this, it's just, you know, I don't wanna create a quandary where a misunderstanding or a disconnect may wind up happening.
Correct. That's exactly
Between
what we're
all of us.
concerned about
Yeah.
as well.
So, obviously, we're both sharing the same concerns. The advantages that I've had on this thing is that, you know, myself and Mr. Garner seem to be in sync about the progress and the way things go and certain things that need to be done, for the most part, so.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Beckford.
My question is this. This has been a colossal problem and a real mess for a long time. And we're dealing with how to solve the problems. How did we get in this mess in the first place? Was it poorly designed? Were the slopes wrong? This has been a terrible thing. So where does it, what is the cause of it? I know, you know, I'll give a little bit of credit to the idea. We did have a wet year, but it shouldn't have been this messy. Roads flooded, lawns washed out, the slopes were was it too dense? Is it too dense a development?
I can't answer that question because I'm not an engineer. That's a question that would be better asked to John. I'll pass that question by him.
You got any ideas, Pat?
It was lack of erosion control.
Lack of erosion
Yeah,
control?
it was, everything was happening too quickly without any stabilization. And they got caught in the very heavy rains that occurred all summer long. And then it was a catch-up, trying to, you know.
It was fresh loom spread when
Yeah.
the first rain happened. It wasn't even
Right.
raked out or anything. We
Yeah.
just trucked it in, we spread it out, and then it
And
rained.
then boom,
Yep.
it was just a disaster.
I remember that week.
So,
Yeah.
if we
Clearly.
If we had a normal year and things have been grasped and stabilized properly and they weren't, then I don't think any of this would be the case, but it
So
was-
part of it is the rain, but part of it is the poor implementation
Yeah.
of the erosion
Yeah,
controls. I
and
think.
for instance, the slopes, the really steep slopes
Yeah.
that are eroded so poorly,
Yeah.
they should have been jute matted from the beginning. They should have been hydroseeded. They weren't. They
Right.
weren't. We kept saying hydroseed, and they didn't do it, you know, month after month. And
Yeah.
we said so in the spring, need a hydroseed, it didn't happen. So then they got caught in an incredibly unusual year. And
Right.
How about if we looked at this whole dense, stuffed plan and said, wait a minute, we're concerned about washout, what's gonna go on here, knock off 20% of the dwellings, spread it out a little bit, grade it out a little bit, make sure it doesn't wash out with that, I would've called for looking for something like that, if I, looking back on it.
looking back, perhaps.
Planning.
Looking
Right,
forward, we
right.
come up with, we get another proposal like this. I
Yeah.
think
Right,
we ought to
and
be
this
pretty tough.
particular plan was approved at town meeting.
Yeah, plus 55 has a lot of leniencies
Is it exactly
with building
the
and
plan
planning
that was
board because of the state
approved at
codes
town
and
meeting?
stuff like that.
To
so
my
it's not-
knowledge.
I see what you're saying.
Was the approved plan reviewed by the planning board's reviewing engineer?
That I do not know. I was not on the planning board at the time. This plan got approved a long time ago.
Oh.
Like,
About 5 years ago?
No, longer
Oh,
than
no, more
that.
than that, maybe 10 years ago.
right. And the original, it only truly got approved because of who was proposing it. And then, I believe, 2000, I don't know, one of the downturns.
6, I think.
I was going to say 2007.
Yeah,
It was
something like
2000,
that. Right.
between 2006 and 2008.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that slowed him down. He put in the wells. And then by the time economically it was feasible to move forward, he decided that, in his words, not mine, that he was too old to do this, to see the project through, and he sold it as a approved plan.
Okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I've only been with this project involved with this project since July, so.
yep.
And I think too, the plans were drawn up with the idea that they were not going to clear cut the property.
Always.
Right. And that made a great big difference, I think.
Yep. But that is all water under the bridge, and we have what we have.
Or water under the jute netting.
Yeah, our water in the basement.
Yeah.
You first.
Okay. Can you help me to understand the sequence of events? I'm hearing that we're one of those properties that needs to have special care between buildings. Are we gonna have to wait for another meeting? Like, are we gonna have to wait for a plan to be proposed and another meeting? And, I mean, we've been there 2 full summers with no side yard. Can there be some kind of like, oh, someone shows someone a plan, everyone likes it, and let's get going on it? Can that happen in any universe?
Well, theoretically, in 2 weeks. I mean, so, can it happen? Sure. The likelihood of it happening anytime super soon? I mean, so part of the reason all of this takes so long is all of these things have to happen at an open meeting,
Right.
at a scheduled open meeting. And that, we meet twice a month. So if at this meeting they don't have the information that we're looking for, it gets kicked to the next meeting.
And then if they don't like it at the next meeting, it gets kicked.
It gets,
And then I can't schedule anybody because I don't know.
Right, and then Brian can't schedule anybody because we don't have an approved plan, and, the wheels of government are slow.
No, it's like somebody, a chairman I used to work with used to like to say, over when I was in Tingsboro, moving at the speed of government.
Moving at the speed of government. I believe that we have seen some progress, that we have made some progress, and that we continue to make some progress. I understand that it is slow, and
As far forward in progress as we are for the next rainstorm.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what, because this is gonna keep going on and on and on.
yep.
Because we make progress, but then it's only as good as the next rainstorm, and then all of a sudden the next rainstorm takes everything away that's just been done.
They have an emergency response plan in their
What is
little
that?
packet.
So if we wind up having disasters as far as erosion goes,
So if you notice erosions, I would start calling, and they have an emergency reaction plan to get
Like,
right
our
out there and get
meetings
it
aren't
fixed.
really what's holding this up, right? I mean,
No, it's the design process.
yeah,
It's
So-
the figuring
I
out.
think you have it
This
here.
isn't
To-
really
uh,
us.
to address
Yeah, mine.
the commissioner's point about the emergency,
Hold on one second. Go ahead.
to address the commissioner's response about the emergency response, since I've been on board anyway, my clients have actually been really good as far as being responsive. We've been working on getting everybody on board to be proactive rather than reactive. So the term emergency means actual real disaster,
Sure.
not something minor, like I see a little plume of silk going down the road.
Right.
It's if the hillside starts to melt away, if jute matting starts to go overboard, if we start having really bad short-circuiting in the detention basin. That's what that's all about. As far as to address the residents' concern, I don't know who was it spoke up, because I just didn't see, but to address that person's concern, about, we've come so far, but we're only gonna get so far as the next rainstorm. So, to recap again, what we've done is we've gotten the site, for the most part, under control, especially comparatively to what it was
In
before I
July.
started in July.
Sure, absolutely.
So we've gotten that done. So the next points were to go over, speak to the residents, which we scheduled a time. It was very well attended. It was actually a great discussion. There's
Good.
really good people that live there. Their concerns are legitimate. We walked all of the units where all the problems were with the residents. Then the three of us walked around behind Wheeler so I could go over those issues again with both Mr. Clark and Mr. Grenier. But at this point, that's when the rapid stuff, as you were pointing out, is going to slow down a little bit because it involves a lot of engineering, and it's just, I mean, I can write narratives till I'm blue in the face.
Sure.
But engineering takes a lot longer to write than a 4-page narrative.
Yep. And,
So-
you know, it's better to engineer the site properly than to try and do a quick fix just to get something done. You know, so I understand it feels a little painful, but we're all doing what we can.
No, it's a lot painful
Yeah.
for all of us.
I was trying to
because
be nice.
No, it's a lot painful, and,
Yeah.
and I mean, we have no problem saying that because we see what's going on. We want solutions to fix it. We don't really, you know, I'm kind of semi-retired. Someday I'd like to fully retire. I don't want to be out here when I'm 66 doing the same thing. So obviously, we all feel the need to get it moving, and we are working on this, and we do take it seriously. It's just, we got to keep on top of it together.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you folks aren't doing the work that you're planning to and everything's, you're moving forward.
Mhm.
Just what we're saying is, we're just waiting for the shoe to fall again.
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned to hear that there's only 3 properties left to finish. I mean, what's our recourse if he finishes? We've already
Well,
issued the,
The certificate of compliance.
Right.
With no COC, they don't accept the HOA,
Yeah,
and
but-
he doesn't hand it over, and he's still responsible.
I asked about that, and basically they told me, from a transition perspective, there was, once they're sold and everything is closed, then they can transition out.
Yeah,
That was in the annual meeting yesterday. There wasn't anything that the neighborhood had to vote on or sign. So-
yeah, I'm not.
He did say the punch list, the
Yeah.
common land punch list had to be completed.
Yeah.
So I assume this would be a big,
This is a
Punch
common
list-
land
Right,
punch
this is
list.
a common land punch list
Yeah, but that
item.
can be
not sure
pretty
how that gets
subjective,
done.
you know, he could say, oh, no, that's
Speaking-
but there
whatever.
was a barrier out of it.
They said nothing.
He
So,
could say, I don't owe you this, I don't owe you that.
yeah,
You know, your idea, you know, the owner's idea of the punch list versus the contractor's idea of the punch list may not be the same thing.
Correct.
So,
It's a good point.
so what are you suggesting?
I don't think we need a escrow.
Could the commission
How
ask
do
for
you
what the
determine how much
site
the escrow
punch
should
list
be though?
contains
Because
at
we
this
have
time?
no idea what kind of storm we could have.
Well, so that's the thing, I was
And
gonna
how
say,
much money would you need to fix the problem?
yeah.
You know, and you said, oh, well, we need $100,000, but the damage is $200,000.
Well, so that's the thing, I was thinking 100 grand, and then he started talking about ripping the whole thing out, and then I started thinking a lot more than
You know, it's
that.
like,
So, I mean, consultants don't answer the phone for less than $1,000, so.
right.
Pat does.
On occasion, and only for you.
You'd be surprised, you'd be surprised at the amount of free time I've given on the phone.
So on the same note, I have a squeaky wheel that I'd like to make sure we
Sure.
talk about tonight. The basin right now, the main basin in the northwest corner, right below Wheeler Road, is probably at about 70% of design capacity. It's so silted in. And what that means is essentially that we have a 25, 50, 100-year storm. I'm not sure what would trigger it. The basin wouldn't be able to handle the flow coming into it. It would overtop, and we'd have a major problem down gradient and in the wetlands. And I know we've talked about this, and we're saying, well, we've got to dewater it, and it's got to be the right season. But basins can be dewatered any time of the year. They can be dewatered slowly, and it might take a
Right,
week to
because
do.
it can be dewatered and not dredged
Yeah,
yet.
Yes.
No, we have no objection. I've offered to have that done.
Yeah. My
I've offered this
concern.
commission to have that done, to have it dewatered. We can do that.
Yeah,
Did we
but-
say no?
But the dewater.
No, we just
Okay.
never, we never,
It
we
never
got involved
really-
in so many other
Yeah.
just salient points, and it was probably because there was stuff that we needed to be prioritized. And honestly, I have no disagreement at all with what Mr. Garner is saying.
Okay.
But I don't have an objection. We can pump it out slowly right over the
But
weir.
Matt, I'm saying there's two things. We need it dewatered, obviously, but the dewatering is being driven by the need to get the junk out of the basin and get it back down to design grade. So that's, that's going to take a period of relatively dry weather. It doesn't need to be dry, but it needs to be dry enough that they can work in it.
Or frozen. If we have a
Or
good
frozen.
freeze, they can
Yeah,
get in
or
there.
frozen.
So that's what we're looking
Yeah.
at.
But
I
it-
don't disagree with that.
I'm saying, that's my structural concern. I mean, we've stopped the erosion, we've done an awful lot of good things. There's a lot of progress, but that could all be turned upside down with one really wallopy, if we have that nor'easter you were talking about coming in, and it dumps 6 or 7 inches on us, that would be enough to blow that basin out.
Right.
And then we'd be
In
looking
its
at a
current
whole-
condition.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
in its current condition. If it was brought back to design grade and cleaned out, the problem goes away.
Right.
But I'm just concerned, we're going into the winter, we've had these hot winters, sort of warm, cold,
Yep.
freeze thaw, and then we've had these freak storms coming through. And I don't want to be the one who said, I told you. You know?
I don't either.
Yeah.
I want to be the one that says, phew, good
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
we did that.
Yeah.
That's,
So I just
that's
wanna,
what,
I want to hear that it's planned and that it's going to be happening and it's going to be done by a fixed date. I do an awful lot of construction monitoring, and I know that I'm not proposing anything that's not feasible.
right.
So that's my.
Right, so dewatering
Yep.
should start immediately?
Well, it could start. There's nothing preventing it from starting immediately.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
no problem.
Okay. Yep. And then, I mean,
You mean after next week, after next weekend?
it should,
I guess.
well,
If we're gonna drain it
I
slow,
mean, I
right?
guess, but, if
If you can
they're
get
still
started
talking
now.
about storm wobbles, and, if it wobbles one way as opposed to the other way.
I would like to be on board with knowing where your hose ends and how you're doing it and that kind of thing. Okay.
Well, my recommendation on that would be to pump it over the top of the trap rock weir and allow it to trickle out through the trap rock.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
It'll
that,
dissipate the energy and catch any fines.
okay. Yeah, and just, Pat is gonna monitor it, and hopefully it'll all go great. Okay, and then, so how do we make a decision as to when they dredge? I know you would like to see it done sooner than not. I would like to see it done sooner than not. Our first freeze might not be till January.
Right. And
With
I'm
the way
saying it's not
things-
necessary. There's an emergency roadway that goes around the basin, so we have complete access to it from all sides. Well, we have particularly from the wooded side, they can drive an excavator through that whole section. It would be ideal under frozen conditions, but it's certainly not necessary. And it's probably 3 days of machine time. It's not a big deal. It's going to be trucks and an excavator and someone monitoring the work and someone taking grade shots occasionally to make sure they're down to the design elevation. But that can be done anytime.
It should be dewatered first.
Yeah, you dewater
So-
first,
right.
and then you bring your machine in.
Right.
And you don't do that during a storm. You do
Sure.
that during a couple days of decent weather.
Yep.
But that's it. It's just not heavy lifting.
Can we issue that as an order? Get it done.
Yeah.
Again,
Yes.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but the timing is off. To push it now, the timing is off. The ground is too soft. 3 days of work with heavy equipment out there is going to beat the living tar out of that detention basin and make a mess around that neighborhood. Now, we can keep that basin pumped out, but I don't agree with Mr. Garner that if we get a heavy rainstorm, that basin is going to necessarily fail if we keep it pumped out. I just don't think it's the right
If you
time.
keep it pumped out, you're correct.
I don't think
So
it's the
that-
right time.
that would be a backup
And that's
if they
something
were
I feel
constantly
very,
keeping
very
it
strongly about.
Okay.
We've got a disaster in the making if we do it now. I mean, the rain has been relentless, the ground out there is soft. We still have other areas that we've got to fix up with grading. And the thought of even going out there and ripping that whole thing out makes me shudder because of how soft the ground is right now. Because of all this rain, and it's not letting up. It's like, we're getting another 2 inches this weekend. It seems like every time I turn around, you get a few days of nice and then 2 inches of rain.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we do get a freeze so we can get this taken care of.
Okay, but dewatering will begin as soon as you can get it all
I'll
coordinated.
work on that tomorrow.
All right. Yep, and just coordinate with Pat.
Yeah, I'll give him
The
a
way,
call.
and.
Come up with a plan. I'll
And
call him.
Matt,
Yeah,
and,
sounds
yeah, okay. Okay. Do you have anything? You?
Me?
Where do we begin?
No.
Questions?
No.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the commission? Okay. John, one sec. Yes, sir?
Hi, I'm Phil Mullins. Thank you for responding to my letter regarding the concern about the forest.
Yep.
That, the whole project is, one of the things that really attracted us to that community. I think I speak for just about everybody, is the quality of that forest. And I don't think there's been as much attention to that element of of how it's affected by what's happened over the last, the time that we've been here. And how that's affected the root structure. Again, at Wheeler Hill, even though it's obviously not nearly as acute as it is at the bottom of the hill there, but the water runs off very heavily, and it pools up behind the properties along there. And I'm really concerned about how that affects the root structure. And then the other larger issue is, I did a rough count. I mean, there's several dozen trees that are dead or dying. And I don't know if that's just because of the way the weather pattern has been, or has it been affected by the construction? I really don't know, but I think that's where I asked the commission to consider looking at those elements, and maybe that's something Patrick can give us some advice on.
Right, so, they are working on the water and all of that. You had pointed out to me early on when the clear cutting first happened, there were some abutters that were concerned about trees on the edge.
Right.
I will also, and I'm gonna let you tell them what you told me, but I'm also gonna point out that 5 years ago, actually 7 years ago, now that I think about it, we had a horrific infestation of gypsy moths for 3 years in a row. Gypsy moth caterpillars in Berlin, and there are so many dead oak trees around town. So that also may be contributing to the dead trees that you're seeing. But if you'd like to...
Well, I don't have anything terribly earth-shaking to note, but it's been, as Carolyn implied, it's been a series of things. It's been the gypsy moths. It's been the fact that the site was not intended to be clear-cut, which it was. There was going to be wooded natural growth between the units to the extent possible. Instead, the contractor just cut everything down. It left this what's called an ecotone, is where you have trees and then nothing. And what tends to happen in situations like that is that the trees that are along the edge either fall in through storms, wind effect, winter conditions, and so there's a certain winnowing that takes place along the edge as well. Then to contribute to that, also the landscaper came in and put trees along the perimeter as they were required to do, but in many cases, the root mass of the trees was built up too high instead of down into the ground. So it's a sort of it's a long-term maintenance issue. It's going to take a lot of monitoring and possibly some replanting, and it's a work in progress, like almost everything we've been talking about.
Were there repercussions to the contractor for violating, if that's the right word?
It wasn't really a violation because it was, as I said, the original developer just promised.
Yeah, it was verbal
It was verbal
assurances. Yeah.
assurances, and so there was nothing to.
There was nothing formalized or
There-
memorialized in the
Exactly.
permits.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah, nothing enforceable anyway.
Yeah.
One more sec. So, and also, we are the Conservation Commission. That doesn't mean we have authority over all things natural, unfortunately. I would love to be able to help out with that, but that isn't something that is in our purview under the law. So,
Who's in charge then? I mean, if there's.
that's
is it
between
all
you
on
guys and the
property?
developer. Yeah,
That's just nature and that's the way it is.
a little bit.
But is that the conservation land? Are we talking about the conservation land?
Well, it is now, yeah. Not all of it, but I don't know specifically where you're talking about. But again, dying trees happen.
Yeah,
You know?
There's 7 dead trees right on the border of the property that I guess we own, and that's now been turned over, the other side of it's been turned over to the Sudbury
Valley trustees.
Valley Transfer.
Yep.
And there's a number of dead trees, some of which are aiming right towards her property and my property,
Right.
and several down the road. We asked the developer if they would remove those, and they said no.
Right.
We were told that nature takes its course.
Correct.
And that if the trees fall, that's nature. However, if they fall one way, that's nature.
Right.
If they fall the other way,
It's a bummer.
there's
It's,
some
yeah,
serious- there's some
it's,
serious issues.
yeah.
Yeah, it would hit some of our properties. It would hit some of our houses.
SVT owns them?
yeah.
And they said
Not
they
just
wouldn't
one
remove
house.
them?
No, the developer did.
Oh.
We can definitely contact Sudbury Valley trustees and see
Thank you.
what they feel, how they feel about, because, yeah. So we will do what we can, but it is
Thank you.
not necessarily anything we have authority over.
Understood.
So,
Thank you.
okay, John,
So, at the last meeting, I was asked to organize a meeting
yes.
with John Grainer, these 2 gentlemen. A bunch of us showed up, we all expressed our concerns, our problems with these guys. We organized all that and sent it to the commission. What is being done with those concerns in relation to everything that's going on here now? Everybody showed up, they brought up some very serious concerns, we did what we were asked. What has happened to that information that we submitted?
So, you've given these, so these guys are addressing.
They listened to us, they walked around, but what's being done about it?
Right.
Okay, so I have to interject here.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be like this thing that we're gonna have a meeting on a Saturday, and by Wednesday, the wand's gonna be waved, and everything's miraculously gonna be taken
No,
care of. That's
that's
just not how it works.
We did not say that.
I understand that, but John, that's the way you seem to be presenting the question, and that's what I'm getting from it. So, I've stated before that every individual problem was examined by Mr. Grenier. I've spoken with him at length this afternoon, and Mr. Benincasa. He is, the first thing he said that impressed upon him from all the residents here was that every single individual problem, there's a lot of similarities, but there's things like with John's property, for example, that are unique to John's area, things to the residents on Campbell that are unique, even though they're similar. there's varying degrees of how they have to be addressed, and that's just not gonna happen in a couple of days.
Right.
He's gonna have to do, he's
So-
doing a lot of elbow
So I
grease.
guess to answer your question, John Grenier is working on engineering a solution.
Okay.
That solution hasn't been reached yet.
I understand. We never
Yep.
told them we wanted a solution by today.
Mhm.
In fact, Brian was concerned about that, and I told him we just wanted to compile the concerns.
Right.
We didn't expect solutions to everything. My question is, how is that gonna be considered with everything? So what
So
was done with
they're
the
gonna
information?
submit the plan, and then,
So, Mr. Grenier has all the information, because the
Yep.
email went to everybody, so all of us have that information.
Yep.
And that, again, that led to what I had just said a couple of times, that John noted based on his walk and the materials that he's received, add the materials to that
Yep.
narrative too,
Right.
that he's noted that every individual problem is very similar, but there are unique differences.
Right.
And it's gonna take,
right, and so I have asked for, at our next meeting, to see the plan as he has it at that point, even if it's not finished. I want to see the progress. I want to see that that we are addressing things and that it's moving forward. So that's the best that we can do at the moment. Hopefully John will not have a conflict for our next
I
meeting.
was gonna say, we have plenty of notice, right? So he could probably, hopefully, make his schedule work so he could show up instead of
Right.
third-party hearsay of what his plan is.
Right, it would be great if he were here, and then maybe he'll have a couple more weeks to, be working on the progress and be able to give us a better idea of when he hopes to have the issues addressed.
I'll be more than
at
happy to
least on
relay that
paper.
to him,
Okay.
absolutely.
When's the next meeting?
2 weeks, whatever. I don't even know what date today is, so.
10/18. 10/18, 7 PM.
And then you guys will probably be.
I actually may have a conflict on the 18th, but the 18th, I have a feeling, would be mostly Mr. Grenier's,
I would agree with that.
so.
Okay. So let's,
Wouldn't it be the 17th? Our next meeting would be the 17th.
No, the 18th
No,
would be a
it's the
Wednesday.
18th. The 18th?
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
Yep,
right. I'm
18th.
right.
Yep.
Today's the 4th.
Yep.
I'm thinking of.
Because my old backyard, Lunenburg, I have a project there that I have to go get flogged for, so.
give up this flogging for that flogging.
Well, I mean, it's my job.
Yep.
Carolyn, I
Yes,
may
sir.
have a conflict on the 18th as well. Normally, if I did, I would send you a report if I could have John's plan ahead of time so I could review it. So that's another thing we ought to shift to them to, make sure I have a copy of whatever the plan is.
Yeah, I'm gonna push John.
3 or
How
4
many days do you
ahead of
need
time.
to review it? 3?
Yeah, 3.
So Sunday night, you should have that in your inbox,
You got it. Yeah.
which would be, so we all are
15th,
aware, I can
if I
write
can
that
do
down.
math.
I was checking because I didn't want to.
I
do that.
agree.
So the 15th would be the request for the engineer to have his information over.
Yeah, and again, whatever, send what he has, have him let us know at what state the plan is, so that we know what we're looking at and know what's to come if it's not complete. All right,
Can we, with that plan, have the enumerated list that John is talking about, and then you could put those two things next to each other to say, well, that's off on the plan, that's on the plan, that's not on the plan, so that we can kind of make sure that we get all the concerns that people have?
well, I think, I understand what you're saying, but I think if John says this plan is 50% done, then I think that might be a little premature.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you have the enumerated list of all of the things that were concerns,
Mm-hmm.
you'd see if it's 50% done or not, because you have 100
Sure.
things that have.
Yeah, and we have the
They have
list.
the plan, and we just want to be able to match those two things up to
Yep.
say this requirement has been met, that has not been met.
Yep.
And it's 50% done, 20% done, at least we have the full list so that we realize, wait a minute, the concern that I have is not on that list.
Mm-hmm. But just because it's not there doesn't
No,
mean,
on
yeah,
the list
okay,
is
I'm
what
just,
I'm saying.
just setting expectations.
I'm not saying that the plan is done, I'm
Yep.
just saying if you had the full list, you could see.
Well, we do have the full list.
Yeah, so
John
I
sent
I
it, yeah.
think what
We
the
haven't
gentleman
seen
is,
that.
Oh, didn't John, so are you talking the list that these guys created?
Exactly.
Oh,
That's what I'm talking.
misunderstood.
So that way we can see that all of the concerns have been
Right,
met.
so I think
They're
what
in
he's
a list.
asking for is a list of, from John, a list of what he, of the concerns as he understands them.
like a narrative to accompany what he's drawing.
Yeah.
Not a narrative, just a list of.
Yeah, just something to say, here are the concerns as I understand them.
Mhm.
And then they say, yep, that's that, or, hey, wait a minute, you missed mine.
And then when we
Oh,
look at the plan,
okay.
we can
I'm
put
getting
those
it
two
now.
things together. You solved it, you did.
Right.
It's 50% done. It's 20%.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think we're gonna call it a night, folks. We have one more hearing that we're 15 minutes late for, or meeting.
Another one.
We'll do it all again in 2 weeks. And Maddie will get a time for next week. There's nothing on at 7:30, right, or 7:15?
7:15 CSX. Yes. I know I will be there.
Yeah, I mean,
Shoot
And
me
then
now.
7:30, yeah.
I look good.
All right, we are
Doing your pictures.
back from our break, and the camera's back on?
Yeah, so I can recuse myself.
Okay. Yes, and now you can recuse yourself.
That's all I wanted to do.
Yep. All right. Hi.
Hello. So this is the plan that was endorsed by the zoning board of
Yes.
appeals. I brought multiple copies because I wasn't sure really what you guys wanted for copies.
Okay. Yes, we'll definitely want at least one to put in the file. Right. So, does everybody remember from the last meeting?
This parking lot is new, right? That's what we asked for the future.
This-
Right,
here.
so,
Yeah.
right, so this is listed as Phase 3. This, the little bump out is Phase 2.
Oh, was
And-
that not on the last plan?
It was, but this is not part of the current order of conditions.
Right, so it's, you know,
So only what's
This.
considered phase one is part of the current order of
right, which
conditions.
ends right here.
Yeah. I
Right.
remember we asked for this.
Yeah,
See
the
that.
building is smaller. If you remember, the building was right up against the 25 foot, which actually isn't shown on here, but,
So if you wanted to do phase 2, you would have to,
We'd have to actually go back to the Conservation Commission.
with the new
right, they'd have to
NOI.
file.
Zoning Board of
Yeah.
Right,
Appeals.
a new NOI
Right.
for Phase 2, and then if they only did that, and then they needed to do Phase 3 would also be another filing.
Correct.
Right. Well, I think, I'm hoping that this, I think we're all hoping that this is adequate and that it will do
I
what.
can't imagine that it won't be, but
Right.
we had to meet your current bylaws.
Yeah, no, and, there's been conversation about maybe amending them, but not really knowing what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
in the-
because
you know.
it's a current bylaw, you can't ask for variance of something that you're creating.
Right.
Do you have tenants for the building already?
We do not, no. The plan is to probably get it pad ready, almost. I don't think we've been working on numbers. I don't think we're gonna start construction until the spring. The tentative plan right now is wait till the ground freezes, get the trees cut, get the erosion control in, get signed off on that, and then before the mud, get some of the, and get this retaining wall done first, is the main plan.
Right. Right, and the reason that we need to vote on this is that there were just some minor changes, such as the size of the building being shrunk.
Right.
And then there were just a couple of, so at the last meeting, Wayne had the plan with the red lines on it, showing what the changes were, which I
Well,
kind of
very
wish we
minimal.
had taken that as well.
Yeah, he offered to leave it.
Yeah.
And I didn't
So,
even think to
you know
grab
what,
it, because I thought we
let's
were all
email
set.
him and get that as well.
I can do
Just so
that,
that we,
too.
yeah, just so we can have both.
Okay, sure. With the red lines.
With the red lines, so,
Okay.
because that plan shows what's different from the plan that's on the
Actual order.
NOI. Right, and then this shows the plan that was approved by the ZBA.
Correct.
So I'd like to have both in the file.
Okay.
So, we just need to vote that the changes are not substantial enough to require amending the NOI.
So moved.
Second.
Do we need to specify at all the phase 2 and phase 3 in this motion?
Oh, we should
It-
specify the.
Well,
change.
right, well, yes, so approve the red line changes to phase 1 of the project.
Okay. So you seconded, Louise?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Walter moved, Louis seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no. Okay.
So one copy's good.
See, it was worth
Yeah.
waiting. Was worth waiting, wasn't it?
I'm not sure any of us.
Try and get on the agenda early.
I'm not sure any of us thought this day would come with this project. Oh, I always do that backwards. All right, so, yep, just the red line plan for the file. And, awesome. Okay. Thank you for waiting.
No problem. Where is that project?
Highland Street. If you go up Highland Street, it's on the left.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't really go up that way there.
Yeah.
Highland Street going to go to Bolton.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one goes to Bolton.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah. Jill, I actually have, you can come back up.
I don't want
Get up here. Just
She
to-
didn't ask you.
Yeah.
to do it now.
Street flooding. I meant to ask while everyone was here, and I didn't write a little note, and so I forgot. After the silt bags were removed.
I didn't notice any last week.
Okay.
Take
Good.
a look this Saturday too,
Yeah,
when it rains.
just
Yeah.
try to,
Keep an eye out.
I
right,
tend to drive it and walk it.
okay,
I'm over on Campbell. I've got the tree problem.
okay.
Yeah.
And the drains were
We're clear? Okay,
moving.
good.
Okay, good.
Good, good. Excellent, thank
But I
you.
will,
Yeah, just,
I'll tell
Yeah.
Jill.
yeah. Well, we'll see you guys in 2
Okay.
weeks anyway. All right. All right, moving on with the agenda. We've got no new business per se, no old business per se. Maddie has some land management, you have some community outreach, and then I think we're good. Maddie.
All right. Well, I guess we'll start. Highland Ridge is having a trail work day tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
So,
May I ask who's doing it? Because I thought it looks done.
SVT is.
They put up their
Overseeing it.
signs and everything a couple weeks ago. It's all clear.
Yeah, there was, what
Muddy.
did Dan say? It was just like some grading, just to kind of smooth things out and everything. I'm not exactly sure where on the trail.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome. I've been walking it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. It's, if you ever get the opportunity to work with SVT, creating a trail, it's a blast.
It's hard work. It was really hot.
Did you go do
Yeah, I did
one of the work days?
Saturdays, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But it's very satisfying. You know,
Yeah.
you've got these woods, and then you turn around and there's a trail. So awesome.
All right. And then Ager Woods. I was wondering if we could start an owl banding project at Ager Woods.
Oh, yeah. When are you gonna do that?
So through the month of October and into early November.
How are you gonna catch them?
Mist nets.
No, nets.
Yep. So northern saw-whats migrate during that period, so they're our smallest owl that we have in the area.
No,
And-
saw-what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So they migrate through the area, and essentially what you do is you set up an array of nets, and you put a collar in the middle of it, and you play their call. They sound like a Amazon truck backing up, basically.
Huh.
Could you do it for us?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh. Come on. I can't whistle. But just basically just a toot, toot, toot.
Right.
Just that over and over again.
Could you say that a little bit louder?
Cool.
But
And that's a night thing.
that's a nighttime thing. Yep. So basically, once the sun sets until about potentially maybe 10 o'clock, if we can go past the quiet hours of.
Well, the owls don't make too much
Yeah, no one's
noise, do
gonna know
they?
it's an owl or
Yeah.
a
we'll just be,
machine.
why is there an
I was gonna
Amazon truck
say,
backing
yeah.
up for?
It's gonna sound like the
Ever.
freaking trash trucks up at Highland Commons.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll keep an eye on the, what is it, Berlin Neighbors Connect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
See
there
if
an
any-
owl behind your house?
Is there an Amazon truck in the woods? Yeah. Yeah, so do you need more supplies? Can you
Nope,
use
so,
what you have?
Before AJ took off, I asked to grab 10 of the poles, so I was hoping to set up 5 nets.
Okay.
I did kind of preemptively go in and set up 3 of the nets.
You knew, I mean, because we talked about this last year.
Yeah.
You were thinking of doing it last
Yep.
year and just never quite
Never did-
got
committed to it.
together. Yeah.
So,
How many owls do you think you would temporarily hold?
I mean, potential. It really depends on the season. You could catch, I don't know, 3 or 4 a night, kind of thing.
Did you ever
It's
do
kind
it?
of slow, but
Did you ever do a great horned owl?
I actually took one out of.
You didn't it?
I held one Monday.
You
I
must
was
say,
driving to
"Hold-
work.
Hold it tight.
It was on Facebook. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
That
Oh, it
owl
was
was,
on Facebook?
yeah.
I was driving by a golf course, and along the driving range, they have netting set up. And I was driving by, and I saw just this great horned owl hanging from its foot, just tangled up. So,
You saved it?
yeah, I saved it. We burritoed it in a towel, unwrapped it.
Here's
It
the,
was-
here's the owl in a burrito.
Yep.
Was
Oh,
that
for
on
heaven's
the
sake.
Yep.
conservation
Let's
plan?
see.
No, it was yeah. Wow. I know, isn't that
Yeah,
awesome?
wicked cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You
Yeah.
did?
Yeah.
All right, we
We
wanna
should
see.
get baby squirrels in the
Yeah.
spring. They make great pets.
Where's that?
So,
Yeah,
this
where
is
wa-
the Haven.
Oh, yeah, Boylston.
The owl makes a good pet.
Well, I used to have baby gray squirrels. I always had a big squirrel.
You're on camera.
So I went up in a nest in the
Yeah, they do.
get a squirrel well.
And you just
I
abandoned
get
them
up
on
there,
the
and
ground.
then I look in, here's these big eyes looking at me, so it was a young owl still, you know, and, what do you call it?
Boy, what is he thinking?
Anyway,
Is it
I took it
yeah,
down,
okay, so
raised
like
it
really
till it got
skinny.
full grown, and
Yeah,
it died
then
after
they
3 years, so I should
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah, that's,
I had it caged, I made a cage out of,
Yeah, let's remember.
In-
Between the beak and the
Right.
claws.
willows and-
I'd be afraid.
I had it hanging
know.
outside.
Isn't that awesome?
Stop, take pictures
Yeah.
of it. Way
Yeah.
against the law then, you know, but it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the sawettes are like this big.
Tiny.
They're cool.
Little teeny tiny, yeah.
Because if ever it happens again, they'll come get you.
yeah. Yeah, it just happened.
Let me see that picture of that owl again. That's
Oh,
so-
yeah. Oh, Manny.
Poor thing. So he probably been
Where
somewhere
did you
for a
get
few
that
hours.
picture? Did you take it?
Facebook.
She put it on, she posted it on Facebook.
I'm just good with technology.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful to watch him fly away too.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
that on
That's
the
nice, huh?
conservation page or?
That's cool.
No, actually, Maddie, you should put that on the conservation page.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see you on a.
So,
All right.
Maddie,
Have a good night.
So Manny, what day? Saturdays or any night?
So
I don't got in the woods.
it'll probably be
You are-
Friday and Saturday nights.
Okay.
And I can definitely put together an email list like we did for the Songbird.
That would be
Bandit.
awesome.
Get together who's interested in coming out, and I'll send out an email like, hey, we're gonna go out tonight.
Do you give out glow sticks? Or anything?
I can.
It's very dark.
Headlamps, I recommend headlamps.
Yeah, that would be so
Like
awesome.
infrared or something, so you don't ruin your eyes.
We usually use just the plain old.
Right. Just don't look at each other. Yeah.
What's
You do
that?
blind knowledge, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Fabulous.
Alright.
Yes, it's going to be great.
Right. So when we met, AJ and I met with the students at Tohoto, we had a list of the things that conservation does. And we included bird banding, and some of the students expressed interest in that.
Okay.
So I don't know if you would want to include them if they,
Absolutely.
right,
That'd be-
it would be a nighttime.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
once we have some dates, you can get in touch with the liaison
Right.
at the school. And
Permission slips.
Yeah, we're potentially thinking
Yeah.
this coming Monday. Because we're
Monday
probably
night?
don't do it on a school night.
I know, I know.
Yeah, so, yeah, that would be.
Anyway, all right. Yes, perfect. All right, and is that all your stuff?
That is all my stuff.
All right.
I hope you catch like 6 of them.
So Louise has some progress to report about finding community service, a student from, or students from Tohoto interested in doing some community service work.
Right, and we had one person who said she was interested in being the student representative. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it tonight. She's also, I think I mentioned it, she's also interested in working on the, putting our pictures together.
Yes.
Right, and all, different.
I have 3 USB drives of pictures from AJ of just different things that,
Yeah. And I
Yep.
probably have that many also.
Yep.
There were students that were interested in doing trail work. So I contacted the liaison, Renee Legendre, and she contacted Marjorie. And, she's very willing, and she's going to let us know when she can
right,
come.
and we got in touch with Dan from SVT and
Right.
asked if he would set up something for the students.
And he was
to-
very excited about that. So he suggested doing Highland Ridge trails. And a member from SVT is available Wednesday. I think it's, I put down the dates, the 21st in the afternoon and November 4th in the afternoon. There would have to be a member of the Conservation Commission with them to
Right.
monitor, to be a mentor.
Yep.
Right. So I will, I sent those dates to Tohoto.
Okay,
So,
awesome.
yeah, so we'll see if any of the kids sign up.
Yeah.
And I'll
Stephanie
also,
Martin is currently looking for input to redesign the townofberlin.com website.
I saw that.
So if you have ideas, especially for your page, she's going through them all. Get in touch with her and see what you could do, maybe about a rotating slideshow or
Right.
something. Yep.
Is she actually doing it, or is it just like a proposed plan?
No, she will do it. Right now,
Oh,
she
cool.
she provided a proposal to the board, and we're like, here you go. So she's out getting input now, looking at other town websites as to what you can do to improve ours. So any input that you have, constructive, please send along to her.
I got some
Oh, okay.
constructive thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
Alright.
keeping up on this.
and right.
And
Thank you.
your
You're
point
welcome.
person while AJ's
Right, exactly.
away.
A whole
And
month, huh?
I know.
Right.
Yep. Told him I want pictures of the northern lights. Right?
Is that where that is?
Yes.
Very exciting.
Yep. Anybody have anything else?
I just have some budget stuff. The end of year things that don't tie off, that I don't know if you want to sign them or not, like, without the ledgers, it's so hard to know what went there, and there's all these new accounts, and it seems reasonably close, but all the stuff with the lower property sale, it went in and out of like 7 different accounts, and it was like, without ledgers, it's impossible to track it.
Right.
And who has the ledgers?
June.
Right, and this is year end.
Mm-hmm.
Do.
So,
Robin, June's going to be out of the office for 3 weeks, starting the end of the month, so if you have anything that you need from her.
I already requested them, and they,
Okay, but just,
Right,
yeah.
as have I.
Yeah.
24th, I think
Okay.
that she's gonna start being out, so.
okay. Yeah, we've already requested them, so.
Oh boy, oh
Okay.
boy.
So there's that, and then, were we gonna transfer the budget stuff to Maddie?
Yes.
Okay, because I did kind of like make some notes on the different forms, and I figured we could go over them after the meeting, and I was gonna make copies of what I have to, like, deliver, and we can just go through that.
Right, and then you'll send her the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I'll send her the spreadsheet, which went off the rails like halfway through the year. Like, the last ledgers I got was in January, so that I have like, the end of January, I have everything tied off, and then after that, they just kind of,
Right.
there's so
So,
many different accounts now.
right. So I'm gonna give you these so you can see if you can make heads or tails, because a lot of this is the Laura stuff. And then we can always, I gotta sign your time card most of the time anyway, so I can sign them at any other time. So I'm gonna give that to you. And so you'll take care of that.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna make some copies, and I'll show Maddie what I did, and then she'll have like my notes on these forms that are on the website.
Awesome.
And then, and then I'll send you my spreadsheet, and well, it's kind of a legacy spreadsheet. I don't know who had it before Carol, but like, I got it from Carol and added some
Lee
stuff.
Tabor had it.
Okay.
Yep.
So, it's a little wonky, but.
Okay. Yep. And you can also, like, if you know here is a hard number, you can also just start a new one.
So that's
from-
what I kind of started doing was I started copy, like, so I take the spreadsheet every year and make a new sheet in the workbook, and then kind of like leave the other one in there and stop, but then I.
Right.
So that way it's a little less cumbersome and.
Right. Yep. Easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always hard using somebody else's spreadsheet.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. Yep.
So.
Yeah.
I've tried to color code some stuff, so I'll when I send it, I'll kind of explain in my notes like what I try and do.
Awesome. All right, guys.
It just went off the rails, like
Not judging spreadsheets are dangerous.
Anybody have anything else?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Not adjourn.
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 Yeah,
That's what I said. I have an accent. He seconded.
Walter seconded. Non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.